Well, hello there. My name is Seth. I'm a full-time fantasy author. I've written 25 books, published most of them, and I make videos because there are a lot of authors who would like to be full-time, are not full-time, and just really aren't making it. And I don't want you to be one of them. Today we're going to be doing something different. We're going to be trying to get an understanding of what I mean when I say a lot of authors just aren't making it. Every year, the Authors Guild releases an opt-in study of authors, both indie and traditional, and they compile all of the statistics and they release them to the public. And the 2022 survey just came out a few weeks ago. So I thought it would be good to go over it and see what's changed and what's stayed the same to hopefully get an accurate picture of what it's like to be an author in this day and age. Now, a couple things before we begin. It's really important to note that this is opt-in. This is a survey of people who voluntarily submitted information, which means that not all of the information is going to be accurate. Some people may be falsely reporting, some people may be underreporting, and the total pool of people surveyed is obviously skewed by who is willing to share their information. But with that said, I do think that this provides a good glimpse into what it's like to be a full-time author. And I'm sure you can see from the caption here just what kind of report we're going to be getting. A new Authors Guild survey finds that the median book and writing-related income for authors in 2022 was below the poverty level. Now, that might look like a surprising headline, but the reality is that that's been the same pretty much forever. Writers just don't make a lot of money on average. But this report isn't all doom and gloom, and there are a few things that I want to highlight. I'm reading this article off of Publishers Weekly. I'll link to it in the description, so if you want to read the whole thing, you can go ahead and read it for yourself. First of all, the big takeaway from this is that most authors have a hard time earning a living from their craft. And again, this has been true for a really long time. This is actually what I mean when I say at the beginning of all of my videos that there are a lot of authors out there who just aren't making it. What they'd like to be doing is writing full-time, making a living from their art, but it's actually kind of tough. But even today with Amazon and indie publishing, it's still hard to do that. Now, even adjusted for inflation, we are seeing some gains. We're up 9% over 2018. And full-time authors are actually up 20%, which means that if you can get to that full-time position, typically you're earning a little bit more. And there are some reasons for that I'd love to discuss a little bit later in this video. Now, even though for full-time authors, the number that they're earning jumped, they're still not earning a whole lot. And according to this, all of the people who identified themselves as full-time authors, the median income is still below poverty level. That doesn't mean that that's all these authors are earning, because a lot of people do other things. They ghostwrite, they edit, they do speaking events, and they make the majority of their money a different way. But what I would like to highlight is that not all hope is lost, because the top 10% of established authors who participated in the survey had a median book income of $275,000 last year. Now, we contrast that with the bottom 50% who had a median book income of $1,300. So you can see there's huge disparity in how much people earn as an author. The good news is that if you can do it successfully, you can make money. And even if you're not earning $250,000 or more, you can still make a really good living. The word of caution, however, is that it clearly takes some specific skill as it's a highly competitive field. And the people who aren't making money really aren't making money. There's a lot of other information in this survey that I think you'll find really interesting. So definitely go and give it a read. But right now, I'd like to take a few moments and talk about why moving into full-time often brings with it an increase in our ability to earn. An often untalked about reality is that attention is what we trade for money. What do I mean by that? I mean, no matter what job you're in, you are trading your attention for money. And the more attention you can give something, typically the higher the earning potential becomes. Think about this. If you're a worker on a factory line and you pay a little bit of attention to what you're doing, just enough to make sure that you're completing your piece of the task, then you'll probably stay in that position forever. On the other hand, if you give 100% of your attention into doing what you're doing, the chances of you getting promoted are pretty high. And if you get promoted, your attention is now more valuable. You might become a shift leader. Eventually, you could even make it into management. Who knows? Maybe you'll even be able to trade your attention into starting your own company. But the point is that the more attention you give to something, typically, the higher your earning potential becomes. Well, when you're not a full-time author, you can only give so much attention to the thing you're doing. Because as you have your attention split between your full-time job or whatever's paying your bills and your writing, the quality of that attention, your ability to produce, is going to be smaller. And if that's the case, it's likely that you're going to earn less money from it. And so what typically happens is when somebody gets to the point where they can become a full-time author, as soon as they step into that new role, all of their attention is now focused on their writing. And this attention becomes more valuable. And this is really just a sort of complicated way of saying the more focus you can give to your writing, the more profitable it is likely to be. Now, this can also, though, lead into a little bit of a mental trap, because people who are not making enough money from their writing to go full-time feel like, hey, I've got to keep my job, because if I don't keep my job, I can't pay for my life. And that certainly could be true. But it might also be that the amount of attention that you give to your writing is directly proportional to the amount of money that you make. So one of the considerations I had when I was trying to determine if I could afford to go full-time, because I wanted to go full-time, I knew that that was like my intent and my ambition, but I didn't know if I could afford it. But one of the considerations I had was, right now I'm part-time. And part-time, I'm earning X amount of dollars, and I'm putting in X amount of time. If I can double the amount of time that I'm putting in, how much am I going to earn? You know, I often see this where somebody says something like, well, I write a couple of books a year. That's all I can do. And often, that's absolutely true. There simply isn't any more time. I think when I was part-time writing, I did between 2 and 3 books a year. And that was working every moment. So anybody who can part-time put 4 books out, that's fantastic. The question is, if you can put 3 books out, working mornings, evenings, weekends, then what happens when you go full-time and you can now put in proper 8-hour days? If you can double your writing time, what's to stop you from putting out 6 books? If you're improving and optimizing, what's to stop you from putting out 8 books or 10 books? And if every book you put out can earn you income, then volume might be the answer to your question of whether you can go full-time or not. Now, again, I don't want to say that all you have to do to be a full-time successful writer is quit your job and start working really hard. That's not always the case, but hard work certainly helps. And I think that sometimes we have this misconception about what writing is. We think of it exclusively as this sort of esoteric art that we can only do when we're feeling creative and we can only do when we're inspired. That's a total trap. Now, I don't know how this video turned from talking about this income survey to a philosophical discussion of craft, but bear with me. At the end of the day, even though writing is still a hard career, there are more and more and more people every day who are able to make that jump. Self-publishing has opened the door, making it accessible to everybody. That includes you. So if you're interested in writing, if you're interested in writing full-time, there is a path. And while it's not easy to join the top, let's say, 10% of writers, if you start working on it today and you're willing to take the steps necessary, I'm very confident that you can create a sustainable, profitable writing career for yourself.